everybody. This is the Sacred Media Group with Diva Lee here today. And today's guest is Cindy Jacobs from Free Rein, Australia. And how are you going, Cindy?
I'm very well. Thank you, Diva Lee. Thank you for the invitation to join you here. Thanks.
I'm absolutely honoured because I've been wanting to actually do, a proper course like this myself and have some horses on a property where they can help people too. And just, so next time I'm down in Victoria, I would love to come and have a visit and a look, if that's okay with you. But so Cindy is a therapist, a healer, a past life regressionist, probably way more. That's only a few things that we got to talk about before we actually went live. And so I'm just going to get her to explain a little bit about how she got into it to start off with.
Okay, I'll try to keep that short. My background was in corporate. So I had my own business and I worked predominantly in oil companies, mining companies, transport, and my role was to roll out massive change in these companies. So it was the deployment of change and managing the workforce through the change process. So it was pretty intense. And anyway, after several years of that, I retired, and I moved down to Torquay with my horses, and then I continued to offer executive coaching to leaders of organizations. And I realized that the issues that they were having were similar to the issues that I had managing my own horses. And so I got curious about the similarities and what it means to be a leader. And, leadership is not about, about getting, what was the word I used to say? Leadership's not about something about rights. I can't remember. About feeding them doesn't give me leadership rights. And so because I'd feed the horses, but then they would disappear on me, and there was no recognition that I was anything more than just somebody to feed them. And so I went on this journey of learning more about the leadership role and how you be a leader with the horses, and how that mirrors being a leader in humans. So, humans and horses, they look for the same thing. They look for someone who gives clear direction, who has respect, who has compassion, who has empathy, who knows what they're doing. Like, all of those things are exactly the same. And so I started offering programs, team development and leadership programs with my horses, and offering that to corporate clients. And then a really strange thing happened, was that people would start to get very deep and very emotional right away. And I thought, well, that's unusual, because when you're in a work team, you usually contain yourself, and you're not as exposed. You don't allow yourself to be quite so vulnerable. And yet people were showing their vulnerability around the horses. And so I realized that I don't have enough skill to support them when they go deep and they go fast. So then I went on another journey of becoming a transpersonal counselor. And at one stage, one of my horses visited my client, and in his dream, and said, wow, "Tell her to go further." And so my client would ring me and go, "Oh, I've had another visit from Wesson, and he's giving me a message for you, go further. Do you know what that means?" And I'm going, "Yeah, I know what that means. I don't have enough training." And so I studied somatic experiencing, which is a trauma modality, and it works primarily with soma, with the body, and how trauma, any adverse experience, any overwhelm registers in our bodies. And quite often it doesn't complete itself. And so we carry the residue of those traumas, whether it's in this lifetime or ancestral or past life. So we carry these patterns of energy in our bodies, and that influences how we see our world, how we respond, our behaviors, our thinking, our beliefs. And so I studied the SE, the somatic experiencing modality, and integrated that with my horses. And over the years, I've been doing this now for about 20 years. And over the years, my horses have revealed more and more about who they really are and how little I really know. And so we've teamed up. I currently have a team of 16 horses, and they're not trained, they're not ridden, they're not conditioned, they're not controlled, dominated. Nothing happens to them. So they live on 80 acres and they live like a herd of wild horses. So they roam and they graze and they do secret horse business or whatever they do when I don't see them. And every morning they show up and they work with people until mid-afternoon, and then they disappear till the next day. So it's like they show up for their day job and then they go back to roaming and grazing and doing whatever it is they do as horses. So I guess that's me. Does that answer your question?
That's absolutely fantastic. Thanks. So many things there. So where did you find out about the somatic experience? Where did that come from? And because I've honestly never heard of it before. I mean, I've heard of like becoming a counsellor. Oh, big car just went past then, noisy car. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
In the neuroscience world, somatic experience is well known, and the founder of somatic experience is a man named Peter Levine, and his first book was Chasing the Tiger, I think. My mind's just gone blank a bit, but he had this belief, which is kind of the foundation of this whole modality. He observed animals in the wild, and he noticed that animals face life-threatening situations every day, and they have the same nervous system. Because they're mammals, they have the same nervous system as we do. And so he had the question, well, why is it, if they face life-threatening situations every single day, why is it that they don't get PTSD and we do? What do they do or not do that's different to what we're doing or not doing? What's the difference? And so in really simple terms, there's a sequence of events that we follow to complete a trauma response. So the trauma happens to us, and then for however we escape or we survive that trauma, then we need to discharge the residual energy of that trauma, usually through shaking or some form of movement. And then the very last step is that we literally have to turn our heads and look around. So we're looking around like coast is clear. And that movement of looking around sends a message to the brain that coast is clear. And I'm good to go. I'm ready for the next adventure. So it resets the nervous system. And in humans, we rarely complete that. Sometimes we don't even shake our way through the trauma response. We suppress that, or we escape a trauma, but that's not the way our bodies would have liked. Our bodies actually want us to prevent it, not escape from it. So the movements that we do to escape from a trauma might be different than what our bodies would have liked to have happen. And I know that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. There's two stories.
No, it does.
There is, okay, so there's the story of the event happens to us, and so we have this cognitive sequential memory of what happened. And then our bodies have another, they've got a story as well, and our bodies don't know the difference between space, time, and dimension, and they don't understand that you can put your hand up and say I'm stopping a bomb. Well, I had a client who was in a terrorist attack in Madrid airport, and a bomb went off, and I should just mute that. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay,
yep, fine.
Oh. So she put her hand up And as she was telling me, I was in this airport and this bomb went off. And I asked her, what's your hand doing? And she looked at her hand like it didn't belong to her. And she said, I'm stopping the bomb. And so in that instance, that was her body's response to completing a trauma. So it doesn't make sense to our cognitive brain. So her body did that. And then when she finished, she put her hand down. And then she looked around organically. I didn't invite her. She just looked around. That's what our bodies need to do. It's like, okay, I took care of that bomb. And she reset her nervous system. And so she was planning to go to Adelaide the next day. And she said that she had been terrified of planes and would have a panic attack just going near an airport. And after we did that completion, she was able to get on the plane, go to Adelaide. She came back the next week, and I asked her how she went. And she goes, oh, I had a really good time. And I said, but what about the plane? And she went, oh, the plane. So she hadn't even realized that the plane was no longer an issue for her. So her body completed a trauma response, and it reset the nervous system. And the message that the body gave to the brain is, I'm safe. I took care of it and I'm safe. And so we can recover from trauma really quickly if we let our bodies, just go through that trauma response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To a completion.
I also wonder too if how many lives does a horse live as a horse? And how many lives do we live as humans? And the trauma just adds up and adds up and adds up and adds up, and it's brought back in through our cellular memories. And our Akashic records must then activate the cellular memories that are in us, or we get triggered by them. So I wonder if that is another reason why horses don't hold on to the trauma, maybe from past things, because there's no triggers there. That would be interesting to find out.
Well, horses live in present moment. And so they, everything's energy. And so when something happens to them, like animals in the wild, they live in the moment too. So they clear the energy of the trauma and they reset. So they don't hold on to it. So the only reason that we hold on to it is, well, lots of reasons. Some of them are because we are prevented from completing a trauma response because, I don't know, maybe we're in a car accident and we can't escape. So that's, we're prevented from, our bodies finding a way to escape. So it traps the trauma in, but it doesn't mean that we can't clear that trauma. Or it's unsafe to clear it or to fight back. So, or to do something that our bodies want us to do. So there's lots of reasons why we trap it in. But animals tend to just respond to the moment, reset their nervous system, and they don't accumulate trauma like we do.
Yeah. And that's why they don't like dealing with people who are holding trauma, because that's fearful to them. And
actually,
they just can't understand why humans would hold on to past trauma. Because they don't do it themselves.
I have a slightly different take on that. It's, we can have as much trauma in our bodies as we have to. And horses don't, they're not concerned about that. They're concerned about our authenticity. They're concerned about our integrity. So if we say, I feel terrified, I'm nervous, I feel unsettled, I feel ungrounded, whatever it is that we're feeling in the moment, if we acknowledge it, the horses are like, oh yeah, that's your stuff. Even if you feel rage and terror or anger, the horses are like, that's cool, because I'm safe with you, because your outer expression now matches your energetic expression. I can, your body is giving me a message and your outer message matches that. And so for those equestrians, when you want to hop on your horse and go for a ride and you've had a bad hair day, you just have to acknowledge it. Just go, I've had a really crummy day, and and so-and-so did this and there was car rage and blah, blah, blah. And, now I'm home and now, I'm just going to take my horse for a ride. So, and I feel really like a big knot in my stomach. And the horse is like, okay, fine. But if you don't acknowledge that and you think you're going to leave it all behind and get on the horse and ride, the horse is like, wait a minute, something's not right here. Your outer and your inner aren't matching, and I don't feel safe with you because I'm getting mixed messages. So as long as your message is congruent, doesn't matter how you are or what trauma you're holding, you have to be congruent.
Right. Oh, very interesting. Gosh, you learn something new every day. And so how did you get into the horse game in the first place? Were you just like a hack rider like I was when I was a kid, or what did you do?
I didn't. No, I didn't have horses until I was like about 40. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So I knew nothing about horses, and my partner and I acquired a few horses, and we had no idea. I had my first experience with recognizing that there was something other than them just being, a horse, being an animal, was we had a few horses and it had been raining for months. And one day we went out to see the horses, and one of the horses touched her nose on an electric fence. And I was about 30 meters away. And she got this shock and she spun around and she ran towards me and literally ran right over the top of me. And it was like slow motion. As she ran over me, she stood on my knee and ripped the ligament away from the bone. And then she stood on my elbow and then she ripped that away. And then she stood on my chest, and I put my hand on my chest, and all I can remember is not the boobs. And she put her foot right on my chest, and it was like time stopped. And as she put her foot on my chest, she knew that if she put weight on me, she would have killed me because she would have just crushed my lungs. She was a big horse. And I knew that she knew, and she knew that I knew. And it was just this exchange of knowing. And so she shifted her weight off me, off my chest, and sort of kicked me in the face on the way past. And so I was taken to the hospital just to make sure I was okay. And we came back. And by then she had gone into our arena, and she was in the far corner with two other horses. And I approached the diagonal corner. And this horse was dissociated. This horse had, no interest in humans at all. And so I never really felt a connection with her because she just was like blank. And so that moment when she ran over me, there was this connection, like we met. And when I got to the arena, she looked over her shoulder and saw me there. And she left her friends and she ran over to me and she looked at me, and there was this sense of like, oh my God, you're okay. The others told me I was going to be dog food, but you're okay. I'm so happy you're okay. And she said, and I'm standing there going, what the heck? And she did this sort of frantic, oh my God, you're okay. And then she spun around and ran back to her friends, and then she dissociated after that. So she like came back into her body just to tell me that message, and then she left. And so it started me on this journey of like, wow, there's something else there. There's way more to these beings than I realized. And so that was the start of it. And I've had lots and lots of interactions with my horses on that etheric level. And they've taught me a lot. So they're not just horses.
This is getting to the good stuff. So tell us all about it. You were saying that you think that they might be. Well, Linda Tucker from Timbavati, the Timbavati white lions. She says the same of the white lions are the souls of ascended masters coming in to walk the ley lines and to open them up again. So, and you feel that your horses are very similar?
I have a very good friend who does energy work and I'm not, I don't want to confine her skill with a label because I really don't know exactly what she does, but she communicates with other beings. And she lives in Pennsylvania. Her name is Jean Rockefeller. And one year, my horses couldn't walk, and their feet, acted like they were walking on hot coals. They just couldn't walk. And my farrier said, no other horses have this problem, only yours. So I don't know what's wrong here, but something's wrong with your horses, only yours. And so, my 3D thinking is like, oh, maybe I need selenium, maybe I needed magnesium, I had no idea. And so I thought, oh, I'm not going to guess. I'm just going to contact Jean and ask Jean what's going on with my horses. And she said, my horses, I had about 19 then. I had 19 horses then. All of them. No one could walk. No one could walk. And I asked Jean, what's going on with my horses? Why can't they walk? And she said, well, their main function here is stabilizing planetary energies, and they're working with the grid lines. And they've got 4 connections to the earth, and their feet are really sore from the work they're doing, and they've got no capacity to work with humans right now. Give them a week and they'll be fine. And sure enough, a week later, they were back, no problem. And the other thing she told me, this was many years ago, and she told me that the reason my horses have chosen to be in this location, so I'm in the Surf Coast Shire area south of Melbourne, and the reason that my horses have chosen that location is because of its proximity to Antarctica. And so since then, a lot of information has come out about Antarctica and nefarious things that are happening there, and mysterious things that are going on down in Antarctica, and how, the general public is not allowed to go there. And so whatever it is that's going on there, my horses have some role in stabilizing energies associated with Antarctica.
Wow, God, that's amazing. That's sort of, how do I put this? It makes sense to me that they're here, and that because they're trying to change the energies in Antarctica. So, of course, Tasmania, just below you, the little island, I am from there originally, and I've noticed that there's been a oh gosh, what's the name of the gallery that's opened up there that's become world famous?
Oh, the one in Hobart.
Yeah. Anyway, the owner of it is David Welsh. And I got a bad feeling about him straight away. So every year in Hobart, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, he has the Dark Mofo Week. Oh, the gallery's called Mona Gallery. It's on the Derwent River, actually. And probably Derwent Park is what it's called, the suburb where it is. And so I'm sure that he's a Satanist. And it's funny because that's so close to Tasmania. And every year he has this Dark Mofo. So Dark Mofo stands for dark ma, right?
Yeah.
So everybody knows what mofo means, and to have the dark in front of it. And every year, I don't know how long it's been going now, it could be 10 years, it gets darker and darker and darker. The whole of Hobart's lit up red, and there are upside down crosses everywhere. Last year, or maybe 2 years ago, he wanted to shoot an Aboriginal's ashes out of a cannon up into space. So that must be some sort of ritual thing. But that was stopped. So the Aboriginals stopped him from doing that. It wasn't the right thing to do. So he had a vial of blood that he let go in this cannon or whatever it was, however he was shooting it off up into space. And it's just getting darker and darker and darker. He has 2 ferries that take you to his gallery, and they're painted in war colors, like camouflage, like army camouflage gear, you know, like one's pink, one's grey. And of course, Marina Bravomovich, or whatever her name is, the artist, you know, that
Abramovich, yeah.
eats people alive, she's had an exhibition there.
Really? Wow.
So and because we know that kids are shipped in via the water, so he's right on the water's edge in Hobart. He also has his home where he lives, and it's so secluded, but it has water access. So yeah, very, very suspicious. And every year, more and more people are putting the red lights up outside their house when dark mofo's going.
Really? Wow.
They have no idea what they're doing it. They think it's just advertising dark mofo. So yeah, I've been screaming about it for years. It's just like, and it's getting worse and worse. So yeah, that Antarctica, it probably, you know, those vibrations are moving through the ley lines and coming up through, and this guy is just making a meal out of Tasmanians, and he gets a lot of help from the Tasmanian government to do what he's doing, and he makes a fortune out of everything anyway. He was a billionaire to start with. He was a card player, you know, a professional poker player. So,
and I wonder if it's the same person, whether he's still there or, you know, he's gone and maybe there's somebody acting as him.
Actually, it could be. I've thought of that too, because I know that they're being rounded up.
Yeah.
Well,
so it'd be interesting to see an older photo of him.
Getting out of hand. So maybe I should try and do a reading on him, read his field, to see where he is.
Yeah. I mean, someone that dark would have to be rounded up by now.
Yeah. And they're all playing, like the government's playing a part. I mean, on his car parking space at the gallery, his God, and his wife's car parking space is God's wife. But it's not our God, I can tell you that.
Wow.
So he thinks he's Satan himself, you know. So yeah. Absolutely. So, you know, there's all sorts of things going on, isn't there, that we have no idea about?
I have, at one point, about a quarter of my clients were SRA clients. So, yeah. And so it really brings it home that it's right on our doorstep. These are, you know, people that experienced SRA, they're survivors of satanic ritual abuse, and they are in the suburbs of Melbourne. And so it really brings it home, and they concur with the stories that you hear from people like Kathy O'Brien and others that have come forward and spoken about it. They're the same stories or similar. Yeah. So
crazy.
It's just on our doorstep.
It's fantastic that the stories are getting out now and that the public is sort of being more made aware of it. But there still needs to be a heap of work done. There shouldn't be one child going missing. I'm on Twitter again now, and I notice a lot of the missing kids that go recently, you know, like yesterday or whatever, that, you know, people share their photos around, and I'm thinking, why are there still kids going missing, you know? So not everybody's rounded up, and like the deep underground bases where they're kept, I know that a lot of them are blown up, but they must be keeping them somewhere.
Yeah. Must be harder though, you know, that their supply is drying up, and so they're taking more risks too, you know, and they're getting a bit sloppier.
I've written a book that I'll advertise at the end of this. I speak to the souls of the SRAs, you know, that have passed over. So they tell their story, and then at the end of the chapter, I get them to tell me, why did your soul choose this path for you? What was your experience in a past life? Why did you want to come here and experience this? Because I want to tell the story, but I don't want to make people into a victim. I want them to claim, their sovereignty and figure out why it happened to them, instead of, because there's always going to be more people that could have been lined up behind that SRA, the SRA factories. Why were you chosen? What was with your frequency that, was a match to theirs?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I just,
one of my clients, I won't say, sorry.
Keep going. Sorry. Keep going.
I won't say too much about her story, except that she was groomed from the age of 3 to become the high priestess and of this coven. And at the age of 13, they had a ceremony where she was supposed to graduate, and it was an initiation. And she had to, the ceremony was the chanting and all of the sort of stuff that goes along with the dark rituals. And she was asked to repeat a statement that involved her saying that she wants to do this work. She wants to continue to do it. And this level of evil is everything that we've heard. And at 13 years old, she said, no, I won't do it. A 13-year-old. So you can imagine all of this evil that's been done to her since she was 3, and this darkness that's been around her. And she had so much light in her that she said no. And I'm on the edge of my chair going, whoa, what happened? And my thought was that if she were to say no, they would attack her, but they didn't. They literally backed away. And the leader of this, who apparently was someone higher up in this structure, said, from this day on, no one from the dark is allowed anywhere near her. So they all just backed away. It's almost like she just channeled this light, and they just backed away from her. So that was a pretty cool outcome. Yeah. And I think that there's a similar pattern in the survivors, that they have a strong connection with source or light or God or whatever you want to call it. And that's what comes through, and that's what pulls them out of it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just wish that we could get everybody in the world to channel that light, and there will be no more dark, reconnect back to God. We've just lost that connection to God so much, because I suppose it could have been church abuse that's turned some people off in the past. And I mean, people don't even like you saying God these days because it triggers something within them. So, you can call God whatever you want to, the universe, the eternal light, our eternal Father, our whatever. It doesn't only have to be God. It's as long as you're comfortable with it. I mean, if I had somebody come visit me that said that they had a problem with me saying God, then I would say, well, you've got a problem. You've got to figure out your triggers. Why are you being triggered by this? There's obviously a trauma there. And unless it's healed, then, you're going to get, that's where disease sets in. Your body malfunctions, as my guides say. Yeah. I actually, so I have been satanically abused in previous lifetimes, 3 times that I know of, that I've delved into. And I know that, all of those triggers were there for me too. But I also know that I've come back in this lifetime to put a stop to the fear that I used to carry around when I was a child, and stand up to them. And so that's why God asked me to write that book. And I wrote it in 2 weeks, and that is no word of a lie.
Wow.
I wrote it in 2 weeks. And I had to pass it on to a friend who edited it for me. So, yeah.
Well, I used to have a recurring dream when I was little that the big people would chase us children, and when they caught us, they would eat us. And this was recurring, and I had terrors because, this dream kept happening, and my friends were being caught, and they were being, eaten. I won't go into the detail. And it wasn't until, recent years that I realized, well, that was actually a memory from a past life that I was, when I was dreaming. It wasn't really a dream. It was actually a memory coming through. So I've been there too.
I had very similar dreams when I was a kid. Yeah, I was being chased by something really, really dark, and I couldn't move. It's like I would start to run away, and then they had some sort of power where they could just stop you, like freeze you in your tracks. So, but time after time after time. And even sometimes after I had my kids, I would have these dreams and I would be terrified for the kids, like I'd have to get up and check them in the middle of the night and make sure they were okay. And then, I started to explore the spiritual realms, and one day did a past life regression, and pop, there was one of them. I was chased by 2 pedophiles in this lifetime, but by the grace of God, they didn't get me.
Wow.
One was a next door neighbour. He actually he put his hand down my top when I was about 13 years old, I think, probably even a bit younger. And it's lucky my brother was there, which, and a friend of mine was there too, which stopped it all. But he stalked me. He stalked me, something terrible. When my mother died and my younger sister and I were left in the house alone, he stalked us all the time. He would be there looking through the windows, and we could see
scary.
him, and we would just
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something that I'm glad that I've dealt with and was brave enough to bring up the trauma and deal with it. And now, just wanting to help others in any way that I can, to get the message out there for us all to stand up as a human collective, all of us, each and every one of us, even the dark ones, they can turn around. They can turn themselves around if they want to. And if we all stand up together, then this dark just has no power over us, and it can't feed off our loosh anymore. So they're gone.
Yeah. And that's the key, is to stay out of fear. Yeah, because that's what they feed on, our fear.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Yep. And that's why, because kids get so fearful. I know that when my kids were younger and something said something silly, it would play on their mind for weeks, and they'd finally come out, start crying and come out with something that that they hadn't let go of or hadn't put closure to. And, we'd have to sit down and talk about it for a while, and then they were okay. But, kids feel a fear and they don't have that mechanism to cope with fear. And some of these little souls in the book that I wrote about, and I could just connect with their energy. I didn't channel them directly. What my guides got me to do, and they showed me how to do it, was to connect with their morphogenetic fields throughout the multiverses. So it doesn't only happen on Earth, it can happen on other planetary systems where they're 3D and it's getting out of hand too. So I read their morphogenetic fields, and it was like in written form. Okay, I had to do a little bit of editing as I was writing, but the first one that I did, it was getting really, really deep and dark and into adrenochrome and things like that. And I couldn't go there. And so I edited that. And from then on, the readings that I did when I was reading their morphogenetic fields, they were impactful but gentle, if there's such a thing, So it's not gore and violent. It talks about it in a way that you can actually read it and, not want to throw it away.
Yeah. That's the challenge, isn't it? Because it's unbearable to face. Yeah.
So what how are your horses, are all horses like these star walkers, I'll start calling them? Are they all, is every horse on planet Earth, or are they specifically attracted to be incarnated to people like you who know what to do with their energy?
I'm not sure I can answer that. I think that all horses have the capacity, and it's like all humans have the capacity to ascend, and they're all at different stages, and humans have different purposes for being here, and so do horses. You know, their purposes are different. My horses have a specific purpose, which is to stabilize planetary energies, and then in their spare time, they work with humans. So it's not their priority, apparently. But you wouldn't know that because they're so generous with their spirit that they just work tirelessly with me and clients, and then they disappear and do their real job.
Mm-hmm. So how do you think that they do their real job? How have you seen them like actually walking on ley lines or gathering in different spots, all of them at once or something like that? Oh, Mike's just put up a photo of your beautiful steeds there.
Yeah, so that's
Helping some clients.
yeah, that's an example of, you know, when we're working on clearing someone's trauma, how the horses close in around us, and they similar to working with the energies on the planet, they go into like a trance-like state, and they're just channeling energy, they're stabilizing energy through their own presence. So I don't see that they're walking any particular patterns. However, I do see patterns that, you know, when they're working with clients, because they're just responding to energy. So whatever energy presents, they're responding to, and their formations and the patterns and the way they stand, it's not random. So they're tuning into the energies that are in their space, and they are responding to that.
Do you get downloads from them?
Yeah, sometimes. Usually they're telling me off, but yeah. Yes,
right. Well, it seems like I'm just picking up that they're going to be giving you downloads on what's happening, you know. So you just if you tell them that you're ready to listen to them, they'll download you, you know, what they're up to and what's going to happen next and stuff like that. So
yeah, I would like that. I had an experience once many years ago. I was struck by this unbearable grief. It wasn't mine, but it was this grief that I could barely breathe. And the day wore on and I couldn't shift it. And I went to bed and I called on all of my etheric supports. And I said, come on, you know, get rid of this, help, you know, shift this off me. And I could feel their presence around me. And one of them was my stallion, who's the father of that gray horse in the picture. And he had passed over, and so they were all there, but no one spoke, no one moved, no one did anything. And so the next morning, I was still carrying this unbearable grief, and I dragged myself up to the stable, and I'm making up the feeds for the horses. And my stallion popped in on my left side, and he said, "We were there for you, but your soul wouldn't let us help you, because you need to learn how to do this yourself." And then the herd popped in on the other side, and in a really sort of snotty, kind of obnoxious voice, they said, "Yeah, that's what we do, and you're just going to have to learn to do it better." And then the moment that happened, it was lifted. It was just done and gone, and the grief was over. But yeah, it was just this weight, and I couldn't shift it. And yeah, so they were having some fun with me, I think.
They actually lightened you up.
Sorry?
They actually lightened you up.
They did.
They lightened you up. Yeah.
They did. Yeah. They were teaching me this lesson. They were teaching me that, yes, this is what we deal with, and you have to be able to deal with this too. To be in service, you have to be able to deal with this. And that's why we're not helping you. You had to do it on your own.
Okay, smarty pants.
They're the smarty pants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's what I was meaning.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
look. So, what are you able to tell any stories without mentioning clients' names or getting too far in about, how they've helped people, so that others might, who are thinking of coming, it might gel with them and give them a push to come and see you?
I can speak in a general sense where some of the things that the horses are doing. Let me just back up a second and just say that the way I work with horses, even though it's called equine therapy, it's everyone who is offering a form of equine therapy is unique. And it really comes back to the person who's offering the therapy, their relationship with their horses, who their horses are. And so it's not like, you can just go to any practitioner and expect the same kind of experience. They're all different. So having said that, so my background is this somatic experiencing, this trauma recovery model. And so my horses are working with me to heal trauma. And so some of the things they do is that I'm going to use physics here so to explain it. So this is really mainstream because, if I go woo woo, people are going, yeah, right. But, there's some real tangible reasons why this works. And so the horses, for example, they have a higher frequency than we do. All these pictures are flashing up on the screen. Yes, that's DJ. That's my stallion.
It's beautiful.
The one
Beautiful.
the one that said we were there for you, and you, yeah. So
yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah. So the horses have this higher frequency than we do, and so what happens in physics is when a lower vibration comes into proximity of a higher vibration, the lower one starts to rise to match the higher one. So you've got the horses with a high vibration, and us humans are lower. We're carrying our unprocessed emotions and our unresolved traumas. And so it's the energies in our bodies start to vibrate faster and they rise. And so that explains why in my early days, when people were coming to me, all of a sudden they're having these experiences of just going too deep too fast, because they were in this energy field of the horses, and their bodies were saying, okay, here's my chance. I've got this energy field here and it's rising, and so I can start releasing. And the other reason is that the horses have a very coherent energy. A lot of people will say that they feel calm when they're around horses, and that that's horses that are their salvation. Equestrians who have horses all their lives, they often say, yeah, whenever life gets too hard, I just hang out with my horse and I feel better. And goodness, all this stuff coming up. And that's an old one. And so what happens is that the horses have this higher vibration, and it's an energy field that's coherent. And when we step into their space, our bodies start to can feel a resonant energy field that feels safe. It's like a containment, like an energy hug. And so I've got 16 horses, and they're vibrating at that certain frequency, and they're deliberately tuning into the person who's arrived. And if the person has anxiety, then their nervous system is firing too high. And so the horses will lower their breathing. And of course, as they slow their breathing down, their heart rate slows down. And when their heart rate slows down, our heart rate starts to entrain to theirs. So our hearts start to synchronize to this slow, coherent rhythm, and that calms us down. And so the horses create this container for us to work with the energies of trauma, because the client automatically feels safe. Their bodies feel the containment, so they know they won't get overwhelmed by the trauma. And so the horses are stimulating these energies to come up, but they're also down regulating as we need them to. And there are times when my clients think that, I'm fine, let's just keep going. And I'll say, are you sure? Are you sure you're okay? Yep, I'm fine. Let's keep moving through this. And a horse will step in between us and just stop us, because the horses can sense when the client's nervous system is reaching their capacity. And so the horses will stop us, or they'll, rub up against the client, or they'll, I don't know, fart. They'll do something to break the tension. Then we laugh. And then, so it's clear that, okay, we need to pause because your nervous system needs to downregulate before we do any more work. So the horses really keep the experience safe. The other things that they do, they touch our bodies where energy is stuck. So, whether it's pain or it's trauma or a heavy emotion that's, like often in our hearts, the horses will touch our bodies where the energy is not flowing. And so whatever it is they do, it's almost like they have this like laser focus where they just zap us, and then that energy the energy block gets released, and then the flow starts happening. So people often comment that, the horses touch them where they've had pain in their bodies, and the horses, and then, after the horses touch them, then they've got that movement and no pain again. So they can sense that, and because everything's energy, so they can sense this flow and where the energy blocks are.
Well, do you know that I have been investigating scalar energy, and I've got crystal healing lights, which are they're Vogel cut crystals, and so there's 7 of them for the 7 chakras, and then some. They're put over a light which flashes on and off, and it's got its own computer. And everybody that goes under the lights, the flashes are different for everyone. So, and I've always wanted to have a healing center like you've got, but also have like a barn type thing where you can open big windows, not so that the horses can come in, but so that they can just pop their head in, and there's rows of chairs in there with people healing. And so
I'd bring the horses in. Yeah, that would be so cool.
Yeah. So I was reading an article a couple of months after I'd started researching, and horses emit a scalar energy, and a powerful one too.
Wow.
So that makes sense as to why they're such the perfect healers, gentle big masters, that
I have a horse named Grace, and she's my master healer. She tells me that she's the most powerful among them, and that she's special. And I was with a client one day, and both of us were sitting down, and both of us were sort of feeling like a bit like, whoa, I need to stand up. So we stood up, and he went one way and I went the other, and we're just standing, like trying to like stabilize, because there was this powerful energy field that was just kind of zapping us. And then Grace came over, and she didn't touch me, but she put her nose right near my heart. That's Grace. Wow. A good one. Wow. And she, perfect timing. She put her nose right up to my heart, and that scalar energy that you're talking about, she zapped me so hard that it felt like I was struck by lightning. And I was in a car once that got struck by lightning, and I know the feeling, it was just like, it's like your heart has this jolt, and that's exactly what she just zapped me with this jolt. And and my heart hurt for about 2 days after that. So, she's just kind of giving me a taste of her power. And so she's done a lot of healing with different clients. And I just wanted to share one story, if I could. In many years ago, I used to, I put this big, heavy table in my round yard, and people would come and lay on the table, and the horse would do what I would call horse Reiki. And I was since told that they're working with a different energy than universal life force energy. They're working direct from source, so it's not calibrated. It's just zap. So it's way more powerful. And so there's one of the clients came one day, and she's laying on the table, the gates opened, so the horses could choose to come in or not. So 12 came in, and they circled her, and one at a time stepped forward, scanned her from foot to head, and then went and did a poop at the rail, then resumed their spot, and then the next one went foot to head, poop, then the next one foot to head, poop, all the way around. So 11 of the horses did that. And the pile of poop was like a week's worth of poop. Where did that come from? Like, horses couldn't do that much normally, but it was this mountain of poop that they dumped.
Taken fur crap and transformed it into poop so they can then expel it.
So the last horse was Grace, and she stepped forward, and with her nose, she started pushing. Yeah, that's her. Started pushing on this woman's pancreas. And so she had pancreatic cancer. She had a 12-centimeter tumor on her pancreas. None of us knew that. And Grace came over and was pushing on the tumor. And so she was pushing with her nose. And 2 weeks later, the client came back. She was in remission, and the tumor was shrinking. And she had put weight on, and she was a lot clearer. And the person who drove her there said that she's a completely different person. And so all that poop that they had dumped, that was the chemo. It's all the toxic energy they were sucking out of her body and then dumping it. So that's pretty cool. And one more story, because I'm just remembering them now.
Yeah. We've got all the time in the world. We'll be here till midnight.
I had a friend who had a child who was about 6 or 7 months old, and she was diagnosed 100% blind, 100% deaf, had little control over body movement, and they didn't know why. And so she brought her daughter to me and the horses, and I'm so optimistic about this. I just go, bring her along, and let's stabilize her. Let's get her nervous system working to an optimum, because the autonomic nervous system controls every organ, every function, every cell in the body. And if it's misfiring, then the body is compromised. And so she brought her daughter along, and she was in a pram, and she sat next to us. And for about 2 hours, we sat there, and I guided her through some processes around creating more coherence in her own body. And then I said, place your hand on your baby and imagine sending all of that energy coherence, send that to your baby. So we were now working with the child. And of course, the horses were working on the baby anyway. And Finn, the dark gray one there, he came along, and he was rubbing his head up and down my client's arm that was touching the child. So when we were finished, we went back up to the stable. And now, remember, this is a child that has no contact with the outside world because she can't hear and she can't see. And for the first time, she was making an effort to connect, like she was kind of talking and making baby noises, not crying because she wanted something, but making noises to like reach out and connect. So she came back the next week, and my client said that they'd gone back to the doctors and did more tests, and she now has 100% hearing, partial eyesight, more control of her body movements, and there's been no medical intervention. So nothing has happened except for the 2 hours that she spent with us. So, and Jean Rockefeller, my friend, said that yes, the horses could heal this child, but there is a karmic contract there that the child has, and so it's dependent on how she goes with that. But it was clear that she had a significant improvement in just that 2-hour session that she had with us.
Wow.
So
that's
it's cool.
amazing.
And coming back to the horses and the round yard, and so I used to have lots of clients come, and the horses were doing all these amazing things. I have all these amazing photos and videos, and it was just if anything else, it was entertaining just watching. Like, some of them would run energy from head to foot, stand at the person's body from the feet and one at the head, and they would just send energy back and forth, and and just weird things that they did. And then one day they said to me, talk to the hoof. We're not doing this anymore. I'm like, what do you mean you're not doing this? This is a good business. I've got the books are full. I'm like, too bad. Talk to the hoof. I'm like, what do you mean? And that's Finn as a baby. He was black. Now he's gray.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And so they said, we can clear the energy blocks. However, unless people are actively working on themselves, the problem is going to reoccur. And so we are willing to work with clients in a different way. We want them to be actively engaged in healing their traumas and not rely on us to clear the blocks, because it isn't going to be sustainable. So, I had to cancel all of my clients, and we're not doing that anymore. We do it. The horses still do it, but they do it differently now, because now the client is engaged with tracking the energy of trauma and taking responsibility for shifting that energy, and the horses are there working and supporting us. So, and it probably works deeper, at a deeper level, because the client is engaged and it is sustainable and it doesn't come back because patterns change.
Yep. Oh, wow. Well, it's about time, I think, that we wrapped it up. So, Cindy, how do people get in touch with you? I know that you're in Victoria, Australia. Can you, do you want to give people an email address or a website? Actually, I tried to get onto your website, but the link was broken or something, and I couldn't get on there today.
That's not my website. The one that's on the screen there, it's .com, not .au. That could be why. Yeah, it's freeReinAustralia.com.
Yeah, no, but I actually clicked on the link that was on Facebook, and it wouldn't take me there. The link was broken or something. It took forever. And then I typed it in myself, and it said the same thing when I did the search. So,
yeah, well, that phone number is correct. That is my address. That's correct. There is another website that is more specific to working with energy and trauma, and that one is called seahorse.com, SEHorse.com. So there's no A in it. SE for somatic experiencing, seahorse.com. And so I can be found there too.
Oh, fantastic. I'm sorry I spelled your website wrong. Look at that.
That's okay.
I missed out the .com.
Yeah.
And before we go, I just want to plug my book again. There it is there. It's called Stop It. Mike, can you take off the thing on the bottom there, Cindy Jacobs, so people can read? Please, it's in, there somewhere. Yeah. So that's the book that I wrote in 2 weeks. And it's the one that God asked me to write. He's been on it. He had been on it me for a long time, and I had started and then tore up other books 3 times. Nothing felt really right over the last probably 3 or 4 years. And then all of a sudden it just came out of the blue. He said, please sit down and write the book. And I thought, oh, God, okay, I'll have a go, because I just didn't know how to approach it. Everything seemed to be too trivial or too violent, the way that, so, but when he said this last time, sit down and please write it, it was just everything opened up for me. And because my guides had been teaching me how to read the morphogenetic fields, a few weeks before. So, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I thought I was actually going to be channeling souls directly, but it wasn't. It was just actually reading their morphogenetic fields. So, and it explains things in an impactful but gentle way. And I just would really love people to read it, get to know what these babies go through. And some of them really are babies. And they are put in, like if they actually live old enough to become teenagers and they start having babies themselves, well, then they're self-producing for the dark ones.
Yep. Yeah.
It's got to be, the more people that are aware, the more we're going to stand up together as human collective and stop it. They'll have nowhere to run. Everybody will be on the lookout now for kids acting strange or not talking at all, or adults acting strange, with children and stuff like that. So hopefully some people will buy it. It's on divalee.co, my website, under the shop tab. So you just scroll down. I think it's normally right at the bottom of the shop tab. So, and it's $19.99, and it comes in just a downloadable form, EPUB book form as well. So yeah, that's that one. That's that taken care of. My beautiful little book. I'm so proud of it. They warm my heart. They really, there's no trauma when I read their morphogenetic fields. There just wasn't any trauma there whatsoever. So and God can keep you up in God Hospital, apparently, so that, so I was told, so that they can actually heal, because it was part of their dharma to come and do what they did. And so they had help healing from the trauma themselves.
And that book is going to be a really important book to be out there, because as people understand what's really going on and what's been happening to our children, they're not going to know how to deal with it. And if that book is a way of helping us to heal that wound ourselves and wound in our collective without being traumatized ourselves, because it's just horrendous to, unthinkable to even contemplate what has happened to these young children.
The evil that can happen to society when we let go of our connection with God, when we cut those cords with God. That's what happens, because we don't know what is evil and what is not. We frogs in a heating pot of water, and we get conditioned to it slowly, and then before you know it, the town's painted red and there's red crosses hanging upside down everywhere. And nobody knows, and they're doing the same to their houses. So that's why I wanted to start this YouTube channel, and to have people on like you to give people an alternative and start teaching.
There we go. Seahorse. Yeah.
Yep, there's Seahorse. Well done, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it then, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And please, I'm going to keep your phone number, and next time we're in Melbourne, hopefully I'll book in with a session for the horses.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, and let's stay in touch and continue some conversations. Yeah.
We will.
Okay.
Anytime you need to come back on with something, just give me a bell and
Sure.
We'll talk and get you in. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Go well.
God bless you. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.